I still remember the sound of the phone ringing that day. It wasn't anything special, not shrill, not dramatic, just ordinary. But it would mark the exact moment my life began to fall apart. I was 9 months pregnant, swollen and exhausted, trying to stay calm in a world that felt like it was closing in on me. And then, out of nowhere, my dad called the police. On me, over $200. It's been years, and I still can't make sense of it. I go over it again and again in my mind, trying to understand how a father could betray his daughter like that, especially when she needed him the most. It wasn't just about the money, it was about trust, family, protection. The things I believed we had. The things I thought were unbreakable. I wasn't perfect, God, I know that. I was young and scared and doing everything I could to hold my life together. But he didn't care. Said I was being dramatic, manipulative, that I was pressuring him. But all I asked for was help. It was $200 for diapers, for formula. For his grandchild, who hadn't even taken her first breath yet, that phone call destroyed something in me. And what happened after the arrest, the jail cell, the birth? It all started right there, with those digits pressed into a phone by someone I used to trust more than anyone. And now, all I have left from him is silence. Before everything fell apart, life was simple, not perfect, not glamorous, just steady in a way that made me feel safe. We lived in a modest home with peeling paint and a creaky porch swing that sang in the wind. My father, Bram, was the rock of our family. Strong, silent, dependable. He wasn't the kind of man who said I love you out loud, but he showed it in fixed leaky faucets, packed lunches, and a worn-out truck that always got us where we needed to go. My mother, Lyra, was the softness to his edges. She made warmth out of very little reused jars, discount groceries, secondhand clothes, and somehow always enough for everyone. She was the glue. The reason the house felt like a home? I was the oldest of 3. My little brother Elias was the curious one, always asking questions. Ren, not my daughter, my sister, was delicate and dreamy, trailing behind me like a shadow I never minded. I loved them fiercely. Being the big sister felt like a calling. It made me think that, when I had kids, I'd raise them in a world just like the one Lyra created. Back then, I believed that no matter what storms came, my family would hold. That we could weather anything together. And I thought Bram, the man who taught me how to ride a bike and catch fireflies, would always have my back. But the cracks were there. Small things. Harsh words said too quickly. Disapproval in his eyes when I talked about leaving our small town. I didn't see the signs for what they were. I didn't know yet how quickly love could turn into control, or how loyalty could be shattered by a single choice. When I found out I was pregnant, I wasn't afraid at first. I was surprised, of course, but more than anything, I was hopeful. Kellen, my boyfriend, didn't run. He didn't flinch. He held me when I cried and promised we'd figure it out together. He was quiet, gentle, the kind of man who didn't make big speeches, but always showed up when it mattered. I believed that was enough. I believed love would be enough, but Bram didn't see it that way. The first time I told him, he didn't even look at me, just stared at the wall and said, "So, this is your choice?" No yelling, no threats. It's just that voice flat, disappointed, like I had broken something sacred. From that moment on, it was like I'd crossed a line I could never step back from. He never said, "I'm ashamed of you." He didn't have to. Every sigh, every silence, every avoided glance said it for him. He told me I should have waited, that I was irresponsible, that Kellen wasn't a real man. He tried to explain we had a plan. We were working, saving, preparing. But nothing I said mattered. In his eyes, I was already ruined. When I asked him for $200 just to help with diapers and formula, it wasn't easy. I felt the lump in my throat the second I dialed his number. I expected judgment, but I hoped for mercy. What I got instead was a cold lecture about consequences and responsibility. He didn't yell. He just dismissed me like I was someone else's problem now. I remember thinking, he's still my dad, isn't he? But when he said, "You made your bed," I felt something inside me crack. That was the moment I stopped being his daughter. and started becoming something else entirely. I didn't sleep the night after our call. I was too angry, too humiliated, too heartbroken. Kept replaying his voice in my head, calm, clipped, like I was nothing more than a nuisance. I had hung up on him, swearing I wouldn't ask for anything again. I meant it. But I never expected what would happen next. Early the next morning, someone pounded on my door. Not knocked, pounded. The kind of sound that shakes you to your bones. My heart jumped. I shuffled to the door, clutching my belly, already feeling a tight ache. I peeked through the peephole and saw two uniformed officers standing there. I opened the door slowly, confused and trembling. One of them asked if I was Nadia. I said yes. That's when they told me my father had called 911. Said I was threatening him, that I was unstable. He feared for his safety. My first instinct was to laugh. It had to be a mistake. I had asked for help. I didn't threaten anyone. But they weren't interested in explanations. They said they needed to take me in. For questioning, I tried to tell them I was pregnant 9 months along. They nodded like it was an inconvenience, not a warning. At the station, they put me in a holding cell. Cold metal bench, bare walls, the smell of bleach and fear. I could feel the pressure building inside me. Something wasn't right, I started. Having contractions, real ones, not the false alarms I'd had before. I told the guards, begged them. They didn't listen, said I was exaggerating, trying to get out. I was screaming by the time my water broke. Alone, scared, my body racked. With pain, that cell became my delivery room. It was only after I collapsed that someone finally took me to a hospital. And even there, after my daughter was born, perfect, fragile, and crying, they didn't let me hold her for long. Just long enough to know what I was losing. After a few hours, they took me back to jail. Not a word from Brom, no call, no visit, nothing. That was the moment I understood what betrayal really feels like. It doesn't come with fire or fury. It comes with silence. In a locked door, they say, freedom is the moment the doors open and you walk out. But when I was released, it didn't feel like freedom. It felt like stepping into the wreckage of a life that no longer belonged to me. I was homeless. The diner was gone. I had no money, no plan, and no idea where to go. I had just given birth to a baby I wasn't allowed to raise, and I had been branded a criminal by the man who was supposed to protect me. There was no welcome home. It's just silence. Cold, cutting silence. The court didn't care that I was a new mother. They didn't care that the texts Bram presented were fake, that his story had holes. I stood there alone. No lawyer, no one in my corner listening to him paint me as unstable, dangerous, dishonest. The sentence was 6 months. 6 months in a cell while my daughter learned how to breathe, sleep, cry without me. Remember, standing there in court, my hands trembling, my heart breaking, wondering how any of this could be real. When they put the cuffs on me, I didn't cry. I had no tears left. The grief had gone too deep, past the place where tears live. It settled somewhere else into a quiet, heavy thing, to the part of me that had once believed in unconditional love. That day I didn't just lose a trial. I lost the last thread of peace I had left. When I finally got out, the world looked the same, but I wasn't. I had been broken, but in that breaking, something sharper had formed. Part of me that wasn't interested in begging anymore. A part that had stopped asking why and started asking how. How do I make him feel even a fraction of what he did to me? It started slowly. I got a part-time job at a cafe. Not glamorous, but it was a step. I stayed with my friend Alana, who gave me a couch and never once looked at me like I was ruined. And every night, after Ren was asleep beside me, I opened my laptop. I started researching pensions, legal loopholes, financial records. I didn't have money for a lawyer, but I had time. I had motivation. I had pain, and that pain had turned into precision. Then I learned Bram was retiring. Full benefits, fat pension, clean reputation. And something in me snapped again. He got to retire like a hero while I was rebuilding my life from the ash heap he tossed me into. No, not this time. I borrowed money from Lyra, who didn't ask too many questions. I hired a lawyer just enough to help me dig deeper. I called in Elena, who worked in finance. He traced his accounts, his retirement paperwork. We found things he never reported, signatures that didn't match, transactions that violated his fund's policy. It wasn't just revenge, it was accountability. I didn't want to destroy him out of spite. I wanted him to finally see what it feels like when someone takes everything you've built and cracks it open. He thought I'd stay silent. He thought jail had broken me. He was wrong. It had sharpened me. The article dropped on a Thursday. Within hours, it was everywhere. Shared, reposted, discussed. My name was redacted, but his wasn't. People started asking questions. His company launched an internal investigation. And just like that, the hero of the construction firm, the respected family man, became a liability. They let him go. His pension froze. His phone stopped ringing. His social circle went silent. It wasn't instant, but it was steady, slow unraveling. The last time I saw Bram, he was sitting on that same couch, the television humming in the background. I asked him one question. Why did you do it? He looked up at me, not angry, not regretful, just empty. No apology. No explanation. Just silence. And that silence said everything. He had nothing left to take from me. Nothing left to say. I walked away that day, not with vengeance in my heart, but with something far more powerful, peace. Because in the end, it wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming myself, my voice, my power, my story. And now every time I look at my daughter, I know the cycle ends with me. The silence he gave me filled it with strength.